For just one time, I would take the Northwest Passage to find the hand of Franklin reaching for the Beaufort Sea.
I have little to say today, but I couldn't help myself. I had to turn on the camera and let you see some of what Ontario's fall colors look like on a nice sunny morning. And these colors don't last more than about 7 to 14 days. I'm talking about the colors on the trees, of course. I'm riding right now through what is called the Oak Ridge Moraine, and this is my daily drive, actually.
Tracing one warm line through a land so wide and savage.
I'm hoping that we'll see some of the red leaves. We may have already missed some of that, but not on a day that's quite as sunny as this.
And make a Northwest Passage to the sea. Westward from the Davis Strait is there 'twas said to lie.
I just thought I'd update you on some of the things that are on the back burner right now and some things that are coming forward. I've been quite busy in recent weeks and even in recent months blogging on my blog, as it were, the blog.paulmckeever.ca, blog.paulmckeever.ca. You'll see a bunch of articles in there that didn't necessarily make it into video content. I've also been busy attending various panels, televised debates or discussions about a wide range of subjects, most of which touched on objectivist or at least capitalist topics.
The sea route to the Orient for which so many died, seeking gold and glory, leaving weathered, broken bones, and a long-forgotten, lonely cairn of stone.
I'm interested in hearing from everybody what they think of the content on the YouTube Objectivists Group. You might not even be aware of it, I don't know, but I maintain what's called a group on YouTube. It's a feature that's not really promoted that much. It's under communities now. It used to be something called expressly called groups, but they don't support it very well on YouTube, at least not yet. Effectively what it is, it's a place for a person or people to collect a bunch of videos and put them all together as a collection, usually surrounding some sort of topic, and often contributed from the same, group of contributors. So in the YouTube Objectivist Group, you'll see a fair number of contributions from people like Exomniverse.
Hey everybody.
99s.
Hi everybody, 99's here.
Qtron Man.
Ladies and gentlemen, Qtron Man here.
Mr. Cropper.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here.
Horvey, I think's got a few in there.
Good evening.
Let me think who else is in there. Oh, Flibbert.
Hey everybody, so I am here up in north part of Manhattan.
C.S. Overman, who produces all kinds of videos actually, and not necessarily on objectivist topics all the time, but they're usually pretty funny. I'd recommend you check out the one he did on Christmas.
I love getting stocked up on socks and underwear, while my brother-in-law makes sure everyone in the room sees that he got a fucking iPhone. And would you look at what this thing can do?
Which is almost as good as the one he did on male bathroom etiquette.
Speech is your enemy. Never, ever, under any circumstance, say a single word while within a bathroom. Not to a friend, not to a lover, not to Jesus himself. Violation of this precept grates against all good things and the way of nature, corrodes the efficiency of the bathroom, and places the very fabric of our civilization in peril.
They're both kind of crude, but you can't help but laugh at the frankness of some of the stuff he's talking about, because there's a lot of truth in there, as embarrassingly true as it is. This, by the way, is what's called the Lake Ridge area, or the Oak Ridges Moraine, but this is probably the most beautiful part of what's called Lake Ridge Road, and there are ski hills to my right. There's two in a row, actually. They're not ski hills like mountainous ski hills. They're short slopes or even cross-country skiing types of land.
For just one time I would take the Northwest Passage.
If you use the YouTube Objectivist Group, perhaps you could post a short video saying what it is you'd like to see more of or less of. What do you think is right with it? What do you think is wrong with it? Right now, I'm essentially operating on the following basis. I look for videos that are tagged Ayn Rand or Objectivist or Objectivism. If the videos are just a bunch of nonsense, a screed of some sort, and I'm not talking a harsh criticism, I'm just talking about people yelling or screaming or burning a copy of Ayn Rand, Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged or something like that. There's limited use in posting that stuff. It's only marginally about Ayn Rand. It's only because her name is mentioned, not because there's anything particularly pro or anti-objectivist about it. It's just usually inanity. So that stuff I try to leave out unless, I don't know, perhaps it's particularly egregious, in which case someone might want to trash the guy who did it, or the gal who did it. Also, I put in there, you'll notice, critiques not only that are educational and tell you about objectivism, but that are critiques of objectivism, against objectivism, sometimes even by people who like parts of objectivism. A good example of that would be Aaron 0883.
Okay, I thought I'd make my second video criticizing Ayn Rand.
Or Exomniverse, who I like Exomniverse, so I don't want to put it too harshly, but he is objectivist in the sense that he supports the metaphysics, the epistemology, and the ethics, at least nominally, at least in the sense that he has correctly identified several of the explicit statements made by Rand, etc. I don't think, though, that he necessarily has integrated it as well as he could have, or as well as he can and will, as of yet, but I'm hoping he will. But the result has been that he, like many, many other people who have come and gone on YouTube, and I'm not saying he's going anywhere because he's a regular poster, but there are a lot of people who have come to believe that objectivist politics is not consistent with objectivist metaphysics, epistemology, and ethics. And I've done a few videos on this. You can look them up. They're the ones on anarchism or libertarianism.
To find the hand of Franklin reaching for the Beaufort Sea, tracing one.
I think that the politics aspects of Ayn Rand's writings were perhaps not as well integrated with the rest of her philosophy explicitly. What I mean is, I don't think she worded things in a way that makes it easy for people to find the connection between her metaphysics, epistemology, and ethics and her politics. I'm not saying she was wrong in her politics. I'm saying that she often adopted fairly traditional ways of discussing politics. So, for example, she would discuss, the idea that it's only by the consent of the governed that the government gets to govern. In some sense that's true. People elect the governed. We have to identify who it is that governs us and distinguish them from people who don't. But that said, I don't think the power itself, and I don't think she ever got into this level of detail into her politics, but I don't think the power itself of government is something that is conferred by individuals, because the people who comprise the government are themselves individuals. And so unless you take the position that nobody has the right to defend another person, and I don't think Ayn Rand took that position. For example, look at the behavior of Francisco in defending Hank Rearden in the book Atlas Shrugged. That was clearly a heroic act when he comes to the rescue and shoots a bunch of thugs. So I don't think Ayn Rand was saying that you don't have any right to defend someone else, and therefore I don't think you need to confer upon someone else the authority to defend you. And I don't think that's what Ayn Rand would suggest, and I don't think she went into it all that deeply. And I don't think you should interpret her comments about, consent of the governed in a way that suggests that what she meant was that the government obtains its power that way. Certainly they become identified as the government that way, and they certainly at that point have been identified as the group that has a monopoly on retaliatory use of force. But that's not to say that Rand rejected Locke's view that every individual has naturally the right of self-defense.
Through a land so wide and savage, and make a northwest passage to the sea. 3 centuries thereafter.
The politics in Ayn Rand's philosophy, I think because of the way Rand chose to describe it, and again, this is not to say she chose an incorrect description, it's only to say that she chose a description that was, I think, not in the same style as the way she described her epistemology, her metaphysics, and her ethics. And I think that was an attempt, perhaps, to reach out to the ideas that already existed and to show how they connect to a rational code of ethics. So in other words, why try to redefine all of the existing good concepts out there in her own words when people already had a fairly good grasp of what things like, consent of the governed meant. I think she tried to make that transition between her ethics and the already existing political ideas, American political ideas, Western political ideas, a more easy task. But I think in the process, people have taken the politics that are traditional politics, and I shouldn't use the word traditional, but the statements, the arguments made by other authors like Locke, and they've tried to, they've presented them as almost dogma, as floating abstractions, as Ayn Rand would say. And it's because I think she adopted their words, because she didn't redefine or start with a different perspective when describing those terms, that she made it easier for people to derive or sort of separate rather her ethics from her politics and leave these floating abstractions. Now the worst result of that has been, and again this is because of the way she described her politics, I think, largely, the worst result has been that people have taken the principle of not initiating the coercive use of force, and that's the floating abstraction, the floating principle that they've most abused, and they most abuse it by ignoring its proper interpretation.
I take passage over land in the footsteps of brave Kelso, where is sea of flowers.
You can't, when you're looking at objectivist politics, make the same kinds of conclusions about such things as consent of the governed as you would make were you to derive consent of the governed from a different ethics, from a different epistemology, from a different metaphysics. So there's a context in which Ayn Rand's politics has to be kept if it is to be interpreted properly. In other words, if Ayn Rand's concepts in the political sphere are to be understood properly, then Ayn Rand's context, metaphysically, epistemology, and ethically, has to be kept in mind. It's when you fail to do that that you end up making such conclusions as, well, because the government has a monopoly on the retaliatory use of force, that is an initiation that involves or necessarily implies an initiation of the coercive use of physical force, and is therefore a violation of Ayn Rand's principle, and therefore Ayn Rand, by advocating government having a monopoly on the coercive use of and therefore by Ayn Rand having a monopoly on the retaliatory use of force, she somehow contradicted herself. I've gone way off of where I wanted to go, but we were talking about the YouTube Objectivist Group, and I was giving an example of people who, like X-Omniverse and Aaron 0883, share some of the ideas expressed in Ayn Rand's works and disagree with others. You'll find people like that, their videos posted to the YouTube Objectivist Group, not because they claim to be objectivists. They don't. Objectivist does not claim to be an objectivist, nor does Aaron0883. He uses the cutesy term objectivish. So, anyway, I don't think there's much harm done in that. He's not claiming that he's representing Ayn Rand's ideas when he trashes them, so that's fair. Now, you'll also find people in the YouTube Objectivist Group who just out and out disagree with Ayn Rand, even with her ethics. So, for example, Pyro.
Now, the thing is, I've read a lot of Ayn Rand's work, and it's similar to seeing a lot of an artist's paintings.
There's a little bit by Stéphane Molyneux, not because he's an objectivist. In fact, for all of his tagging of his videos with objectivist and objectivism and etc. and Ayn Rand, he is not, in my estimate, an objectivist at all.
Hi everybody, it's Stéphane Molyneux.
He's a Humean skeptic, and ethically he's more or less Kantian, or, you know, an advocate of Jesus's Christianity. But, you know, I can't say I've watched all 500 and whatever thousand videos he's put out. I'm not that into him, so maybe I've not gotten, you know, a perfect estimate of what he's about. But I have done a video in which he spoke specifically about Ayn Rand and how he claimed that she had not solved the is-ought dichotomy, or the is-ought problem in ethics, and where he says that Hume was right, that Hume, having identified that is-ought problem, was correct in the sense that nobody had yet solved it. Anyway, there's the YouTube Objectivist Group. There's a whole whack of people there that you can enjoy. If you haven't yet checked it out, check it out. Getting to it, I believe what you have to do is go to youtube.com/group/objectivists, but I could be wrong, and if I am, just look down here on the screen and you'll find the correct URL. I'll put it on there. This is probably the least planned out and least coherent video I've ever done. I apologize for that. I didn't really plan on doing a video today, and in fact I was already en route to my office when I saw this beautiful autumn day, and I thought, geez, this would just be a crime not to share this with people over at YouTube. So that's why I'm doing this, and I apologize if I'm rambling, but turn off the volume if it's a problem, and just enjoy the scenery.
Watching cities rise before me, then behind me sink again. This tardiest explorer, driving hard across the plain, for just one time.
I should probably just give you a heads up on some of the things that I'm planning on doing, or that I've been planning on doing in terms of video. One is a critique of an essay by Nathaniel Branden, an old essay by Nathaniel Branden that he maintains on his website predominantly. There's a link to the essay itself, so it's something I guess he considers valuable to his current practice, which is, I suppose, psychological services. But it's so laden with misrepresentations. Literally, there are so many in there that it's been taking me forever to collect the evidence, not because it's hard to find, but because there's so much of it, that his statements are completely and utterly false and misrepresentative. I don't want to make any final conclusions in this video about that essay, because I've written down a number of different points I want to make, and when I'm finally prepared to make the video, I'll put it out as quickly as I can.
I would take the Northwest Passage to find the hand of Franklin reaching for the Beaufort Sea, tracing one warm line through a land so wide and savage, and make a Northwest Passage to the sea.
A third thing I've been working on is a website, and some content for the website in preparation for Reasons Harvest 2008, which happens on the first Friday after the American Thanksgiving. In other words, it happens on the same day as the so-called Black Friday, the biggest Christmas shopping day of the year. And people who have watched my videos before may be familiar with the Reasons Harvest holiday video I did last year. I just thought it was important for rational people to have a holiday on which, rational conduct is both practiced and rewarded, and in which the proper beneficiary is identified. So I'm going to continue doing this every year, this holiday, and promoting this holiday, and hoping that other people will share it with me. And if you want to see how I celebrated it for the first time last year, you look in November. I believe it was a November or December video that covered what I did on November's Reasons Harvest on Black Friday last year. And this year I'm putting together a website, reasonsharvest.com, and you'll be able to go there, and I'm hoping, if it's done on time, you'll be able to pick up or contribute holiday ideas, ways to have fun on Reasons Harvest, ways to celebrate it, and ways to share your experience of it thereafter. So I'm hoping to post to the reasonsharvest.com website videos of people celebrating Reasons Harvest, if that's what they choose to make, a video of their celebration. And I'm expecting, given the emails I've received, that some people will be celebrating Reasons Harvest. The other thing I hope to put on there, by the way, is some people were asking about the t-shirt that I designed on Reasons Harvest last year. So I'm going to make the stencil available so that people can make that t-shirt for themselves by just going out, buying a blank t-shirt, from Walmart or whatever, getting an iron-on decal kit for black shirts. That also I got at Walmart last year. I think the combined cost of the t-shirt and the iron-on was about $15. And then you just run the iron-on stencil through your, or the material through your printer, and the stencil gets printed right on the iron-on. You cut the iron-on design out, and then iron it straight onto your shirt. So pretty easy, and I'm hoping to make that available to people on the reasonsharvest.com website as soon as possible. There is a web page up there right now, but it's just provisional. It just explains the holiday. It doesn't provide any interaction right yet. No blog, no video sharing or anything like that. But that's coming, I'm hoping, for 2008. And if you'd like to help out with the Reasons Harvest website, I encourage you to do so. Write to me at pmckeever@mckeever.com. Now, by the way, when you send that email, you'll have to do a confirmation before it'll actually get delivered. I use a spamware thing that doesn't deliver your email until you respond to an email that my system sends out to you. So you send your email to me, my system sends an email to you, you hit the reply button and send that email right back to me, and from then on your emails will get through to me without having to go through that process anymore. So if you'd like to help out with the reasonsharvest.com website, if you've got some ideas, if you have a plan to video your own celebration of Reasons Harvest, any of those things, give me an email, send me an email, or you can call me at my office, 905-721-9772. I'll be happy to speak with you about Reasons Harvest as soon as I've got an opportunity to do so. And what else? Oh yes, I've also got a series I'm planning on, and I haven't done any work on this yet, although I suppose I've done one video on it now that I think about it, and that is basically a series on how not to argue for individual freedom, how not to argue for capitalism. And there's far too many good-hearted, if you will, people trying to advocate capitalism and freedom, and they use arguments that I've tried badly in the past to use to argue for freedom, that I've discovered over the years are not really good arguments, either because they're floating abstractions that are easy to undermine, especially for, if you're a nefarious person intent on being intellectually dishonest. There are better ways to fight or argue for freedom, and worse ways to do so. So I'm hoping to draw out some of the common mistakes made by people who advocate individual freedom, and to provide for them alternate arguments, alternate ways of describing things, where they won't open themselves up so easily to dishonest attacks or to arguments that seem to confuse them. Part of that that series will be to help people focus on arguing with the essential arguments instead of with the non-essential ones, and pointing out how that's important and why that's important, and just how effective it is when you do argue in terms of essentials and avoid arguing in terms of non-essentials. Also, the importance of defining who you aren't and who you don't associate with and who you refuse to support. Largely in this life, especially when you're advocating freedom, you will discover, if you're paying attention, that you will be defined not by what you advocate so much as by what you condemn. And that has a lot to do with human psychology and the way people remember things. People tend to remember things that are bad and to forget things that are good, because things that are good, well, if they happen, then great, they figure. But things that are bad, well, those things could end their lives, end their happiness, etc. So they tend to remember those things. In fact, they forget who tells them these bad things, but they do remember them. And when you're defining yourself and when you're advocating freedom, it's important not only to say, here's what's good about freedom, but here's what's bad about what the other guys are advocating. And some of the guys I'm talking about are not just the socialists, but people who you would think would be, you might even consider them to be advocating freedom, but they're doing it so badly that they in fact become your enemy. They become a worse obstruction to the advocacy of freedom than do the socialists. Anyway, that is my contribution for today. Here's the beard. It's gotten a bit of attention. Here, there we go. And anyway, I hope to see you all on YouTube, doing some more videos on YouTube. 99s, it was nice to see you again recently, doing a video. And Mr. Cropper, you're probably really busy now with your students. Congratulations on having those students and having your school up and running. And spend time doing that and being productive and getting that done, of course. But don't forget us here at YouTube, your friends at YouTube, who enjoy listening to your arguments, whether for objectivism or against its opponents. All right, everybody, that's it for me for today, and hope to see you again soon. Take care. Bye.
Tracing one warm line through a land so wide and savage, and make a northwest passage to the sea.